This is a very brief introduction to the Victorian era. It will cover Queen Victoria, Victorian social mores, the upper class, fashion and dandyism, and Victorian women. You should use this introduction as a basis for your own research into the context of the importance of being earnest. The Victorian era was named for Queen Victoria of England, who reigned from 1837 to 1901. She came to the throne at the age of just 18. Privately, she attempted to influence government policy and ministerial appointments, and publicly she became a national icon and was identified with strict standards of personal morality. She married her cousin Prince Albert in 1840 and adored him. She created a culture that valued family and stability. Their 9 children married into royal and noble families across the continent, tying them together and earning her the nickname the Grandmother of Europe. Albert died in 1861, and Victoria fell into a deep mourning, wearing black for the rest of her life. In the Victorian era, an intricate code of behaviour governed everything from communication to sexuality. Men were expected to be well educated, and women were expected to marry well. People didn't just drop in to visit, they made formal appointments. Refreshments were expected when people came to call, usually tea and cake or tiny, elegant cucumber sandwiches. Good manners were extremely important, and in the upper classes, people with a bad reputation were outcast no matter how much money they had. Historians now regard the Victorian era as a time of contradictions. Despite the widespread cultivation of outward appearances of dignity and restraint, there was a prevalence of prostitution and child labour that made concerns with strict moral codes seem hypocritical. The upper class valued history, heritage, lineage, and the continuity of their family line. They had a paternalistic view of society, seeing themselves as the father in the family of society. Noblesse oblige was their belief that it was the elite's duty to take care of society. Members of the upper class were well educated, came from a rich and respected family, or old money, and believed that having good manners mattered more than anything else. Women's clothes had to be modest, covering them from head to ankle. Women's wear went through many changes throughout the Victorian era, but was generally characterised by corsets, wide puffed sleeves, wide skirts, and large hats adorned with feathers and flowers. Men wore frock coats, waistcoats, and top hats. Formal evening dress was a dark tailcoat, waistcoat, and trousers with a white bow tie. A dandy was a man who placed particular importance upon physical appearance, refined language, and leisurely hobbies, pursued with the appearance of nonchalance. Historically, especially in late 18th and early 19th century Britain, a dandy who was self-made often strove to imitate an aristocratic lifestyle, despite coming from a middle-class background. Women's rights were extremely limited in this era. Young women were chaperoned until they were married, when the rights of the woman would be legally given over to her spouse. Under the law, the married couple became one entity, where the husband would take control of all property, earnings, and money. Victorian wives also became property to their husbands, giving them rights to what their bodies produced: children, sex, and domestic labour. However, the 1895 audience of Earnest may well have defined Gwendolen and Cecily as new women. This term was coined in 1894 by the novelist Sarah Grand to describe women who were dissatisfied with their conventional roles and sought wider fields of action than domesticity. In positive descriptions of the new woman, she was intelligent, educated, active, employable, and attractive. In negative versions, she was described as unwomanly and immoral.